Libya, one of the least visited countries in the world and one of the countries that people know the least about. Even people from my home country of Italy know very little about Libya and the life of the Libyans, despite the countries being very close together and sharing a maritime border. The few things that we do know about Libya have a very negative connotation: war, political instability, and port of departure for the thousands of migrants with nothing to lose who gamble with their lives trying to cross the Mediterranean and set foot in Europe in this way. But me, I've always been incredibly interested in Libya, and I always dreamt of being able to go and see with my own eyes what the landscapes on the other side of the Mediterranean look like nowadays, some 80 years later after Libya ceased being an Italian colony, which it had been from 1911 to 1943. After a recent ceasefire was declared a couple of years ago, which saw rates of violence across the country decrease, I was finally able to put together a plan to allow me to finally take off on a mission to Libya. My most sincere greetings from Rome, and more specifically, my most sincere greetings from that area of the Italian capital which is full of toponyms and remnants of the colonial past of the country. We're here indeed at the metro stop, which is named after Libya, as you can see here, and the street where this metro stop is positioned on is, you've guessed it, Viale Libya, Libyan Avenue. And we're here in Rome because it's from this place that we will be starting our adventure towards the south, towards the other side of the Mediterranean. We had two options basically. We could have gone via sea, or we could have gone on a plane at Fiumicino Airport and traveled to Tripoli, the capital of Libya, in this way. And this is what we've opted for, so join me. After chilling around for a bit near Libyan Avenue and Tripoli Street on the outskirts of Rome, I then headed to the main train station of the city. But before catching my train to the airport, I needed to stop by and get my visa printed. Se puoi farmi 3 copie a colori? Following the Arab Spring protests of 2011, Colonel Gaddafi was forcibly removed from power and unalived, and a series of civil wars followed. Thank you. Bye. It was in this context that tourism in Libya between 2011 and the first few months of 2024 was practically impossible, as no tourist visa was being issued. But not long ago, I was informed that the new Libyan provisional government, after an alleged improvement in the security situation in the country, had decided to test out a new e-visa, which you could apply for online to kick tourism back off once again. The only caveat is that you still can't travel independently in Libya, so you still need to ask for a formal invitation from a tour agency that is based in Libya. So that's also what I did. I just found some random tour agency from Libya on the internet, and I managed to get their contacts for my visa. The other thing is that I will need a representative from said tour agency to meet me at the airport once we land in Tripoli. After receiving my visa to Libya, I could go on to Flightradar and see what options I had. So I've started studying the places and the cities and the airports with direct air links with Tripoli, and I saw that apparently Tunis, the capital of Tunisia, just because it's close to it, is the airport that gets the most flights from and to Tripoli, right around 5 or 6 per day. But then there's a couple of flights to Istanbul and to Cairo, whereas the only city in the European Union that you can fly from if you want to reach Tripoli is this one, Rome. Welcome to Fiumicino Airport, from where there's a weekly flight operated by a Libyan airline that takes off into the sky and rides across the Mediterranean for right around an hour or so before reaching Tripoli. And it's exactly that flight that we are going to jump on today. The name of the legendary airline that was going to take me on the just as legendary hop across the Mediterranean was Medsky Airways, portmanteau of Mediterranean Sky, which was a very promising name. What hadn't been promising at all was the process of booking a seat on this Medsky Airways flight. As well, I was on the website, as I got to the checkout step, I was finally told that I wasn't able to complete the payment online and I was supposed to pay for the flight at the physical office of Medsky Airways that was closest to me. The closest physical office of Medsky Airways to me was in Istanbul, Turkey. I was in Rimini. But thankfully, under advice from the Libyan local agency, I was able to find a weird app on the Apple Store, which was basically the Arab equivalent of Skyscanner, and I was able to book and pay for the flight on there. Good news, the flight does exist, because I see that 11:50 destination Mytiga. And don't let that fool you, Mytiga is the name of the current international airport of Tripoli, and you can see the logo of Medsky Airways. It's leaving from Terminal 3, and by sheer coincidence, this is Terminal 3, and the check-in desk is 179. So let's go and see this check-in desk. Let's go and check out this check-in desk, because I'm really curious to see the documents that they will need from me. Passport, I've got it. Visa, printed in color, I've got it. And I'm also curious to see if there will be other Italians with me on the plane, or if I will be the only one amongst all sorts of Libyans and maybe Algerians and Tunisians as well. Ciao, ho prenotato tramite un'app terza, non so quale.
Sei fida?
La mail di conferma mi è arrivata, quindi...
Vediamo se funziona.
Visto ce l'ho.
Guarda, sì.
Ci sono?
Bene,
Fantastico.
certo. Allora, il visto ce l'ha nel passaporto, vero?
No, ho il neonato visto elettronico.
Vediamolo.
Una delle prime persone che lo fa.
Ah sì, sono il primo? Primo o uno dei primi?
No, è il primo che vedo col visto elettronico.
Ah wow, figo.
Allora, il gate sarà E8, 10:50 iniziamo l'imbarco. Da spedire qualcosa o porta...
No, solo bagaglio in mano. So I've checked in, I've got my boarding pass and I went through security, which was fine. I didn't even need to take out my laptop, nor my water bottles. You can even take water through security now at Fiumicino Airport. Isn't that amazing? What's even more amazing is the fact that I've got my boarding pass, and it was interesting to speak to there was a woman and a young guy at the check-in desk. They told me that this is the first time that they see an e-visa, the electronic visa, just to give you the idea of how recent it was that Libya started opening up for tourism again. And soon enough, the time came to board the mysterious Medsky aircraft from gate E7. The vast majority of passengers at the gate had North African physical traits, but I did spot a few middle-aged passengers that were speaking Italian on the phone. At that moment, I was still thinking that they were Libyans, maybe second-generation immigrants into Italy, especially considering that in their hands was a passport of an unusual shade of blue. I would soon find out that I was wrong, but I will get back to it later on in the video. Oh well, it's getting windier out here near the runway here at Fiumicino, but look at it! It's also noisy, very noisy. And there you go. I have to say, this is absolutely amazing. I'm sitting on the first row of the plane, first economy row, I should say, because behind this thing is business. There are 3 rows of business as far as I can see. And it's also interesting to see that this is the only flight that is operated between Tripoli and the European Union. You've got Malta as well, actually. I've just found out from the very kind and nice flight attendant. Even though it's operated weekly or bi-weekly at best over the summer, it's not full. I want to say that it's half empty. I think capacity is at around 60 or 70%. I'm not going to complain. Look at all the space that I've got, even though the flight is not going to be that long anyway. We're leaving, we're taking off at 11:50 and we're landing at 1:40.
We soon started taxiing towards the runway, and even though it's true that the flight was far from being sold out, they still had a Libyan woman sit on the same row as me just before takeoff for unspecified reasons. And soon enough, the moment of no return came, and we took off. The wheels of the plane lost contact with the tarmac and the ground beneath. The next time that we would touch land once again, we would already be in Tripoli, in another country, in another continent, provided that obviously everything went to plan.
By the way, this is really interesting, the in-flight magazine. I've never seen an in-flight magazine like this, just because obviously I don't have much familiarity with the Arab world. I've never seen an in-flight magazine that actually reads from right to left. This is interesting. This is the cover, and it opens this way. You almost read it like a manga. Feels like I'm reading One Piece, right? And this is interesting. So Sky Airways is flying indeed to two destinations in the European Union, namely Valletta Airport, Malta, and Rome Airport in Italy, even though the chief manager of the airline is now saying that Allah willing, we will land in other European airports soon. Inshallah. But yeah, it's just two places in Europe that you can fly to from Tripoli these days, and only with this airline, Sky. Which is also because this is the only Libyan airline that is not banned from European airspace. Thank you. Wow, what can I say? Top-notch service from a Libyan airline such as Sky. Look at this, such a short flight, between 1 hour and 1.5 hours, but we've still got full flight, full service meals, which is nice. We've got some beef, we've got some cheese to spread on our butterbrot. Well done, Sky Airways. You're really taking good care of me on my first ever trip to Libya. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in our young life, we can set our eyes on the northernmost shores of the African continent, the legendary African continent, spawning all the way from Cape Town in South Africa, all the way to here, to Libya, where it meets the Mediterranean Sea. On the other side of the continent, you've got freaking Antarctica, whereas here, the climate is nothing like Antarctica. You see the Libyan coast, the same Libyan coast that has been the goal of many different peoples throughout the centuries, including the Italians who came here not so much to enjoy the beautiful beaches of Libya, but just to take advantage of the deposits of oil and natural resources that are found in the south part of the country around the Sahara. In a few minutes, we will be setting foot in Libya. We will be landing, we will have to deal with customs at the airport. Hopefully there's somebody waiting for me, otherwise I'm gonna be stuck at the Tripoli International Airport, waiting to be put back on the next flight back to Rome, which is going to be in a week's time.
I was very nervous at this point. I was about to come in contact with the notoriously difficult Libyan authorities, and at that point I didn't even know if they had already seen an electronic visa before. But I was just excited as I was nervous, especially when our aircraft started flying over Libyan land and I could spot, for the very first time in my young life, Libyan flags in the wild from the plane window.
Wow, I've dreamt it for so long to be able to say that we're now on the final approach to Tripoli International Airport. Look at the flags! Oh my god, is that the main square then? There's two Libyan flags. You probably can't see them from my action camera, but there's definitely two Libyan flags waving high in the sky. You had the green flag. You remember the green flag?
This is the old
one, yeah. When I was a kid, in my atlas on my book, I remember looking at Libya with the green flag, like 25 years ago, yeah. That looks like a beautiful beach.
Yes. The airport that we were going to land at was a provisional airport, in the sense that it was originally a military airport that had been accommodating civilian flights ever since the original international airport of Tripoli had been destroyed during the hostilities of the early 2010s.
Man, this is so fascinating. We've just landed at this airport, which wasn't really built to accommodate so many civilian flights. And we're seeing airlines that I haven't really heard of before in my life. Like, there's no Ryanair, there's no Wizz Air, there's no Lufthansa. There's an airline called Burak. And there's also an airline called Afrikia, which is another one of the national airlines of Libya. Libya has something like 3 different airlines for whatever reason, and I think we're just getting to our parking spot, which might very well be just right here.
I was now officially ever so close to set foot in Libya and lose my visa-free access to the United States. You lose your eligibility for the ESTA if you ever visit Yemen, Syria, Sudan, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, and Libya.
Whoa! Thank you, MedSky Airways, for having us taken all the way to Tripoli, to Mitiga. It's been a fun ride, just across the pond.
When I got inside the terminal at Mitiga Airport, I wasn't able to record much for obvious reasons, and it's a shame, because everything was so freaking surreal. I could see the usual desks for passport control, but who I thought were the officials there were not really in a uniform or anything. I also had to wait quite a lot, as I could see my passport being passed around between the various border offices across different rooms. But this gave me the chance and the time to make acquaintance with another Italian-looking dude who had apparently just arrived in Libya for work.
Il passaporto si arrangia lui, per andare lì e ti prepara la carta.
And then the unthinkable happened. I was looking towards the desk of the border officer when I noticed all of a sudden that he was handling a blue passport, which I thought was weird, as we had been standing there for over half an hour, by which point most Libyan citizens had already gone through passport control, so that blue passport couldn't be no Libyan passport. So I had a closer look, and indeed I could see that that passport was no regular Libyan passport, but indeed it was an Italian diplomatic passport, which is obviously blue. For the very first time in my young life, I had the chance to see a diplomatic passport, surely belonging to maybe some Italian diplomat who was working at the Italian embassy in Tripoli, Libya. Wow, such an amazing sensation for all of us geographic nerds.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reason why we will never be able to enter the United States without a visa ever again. We've got the beautiful Libyan stamp, oh my god, with a random number. There's 6 digits there. I don't know what they mean, but I mean, I do know what they mean. They mean that we're inside Libya. Oh my god, look at the Mediterranean Sea. You guys must be confused by now, because I couldn't really film anything at border control for obvious reason. It was a bit chaotic. I arrived there and there were no there were a lot of people working there, but none was in uniform, which was quite funny to say. But then they took my passport, they took my printed visa, and then they went away with my passport for like half an hour. But thankfully, there was somebody waiting for me, so there was my kind guy from the tour agency that I booked in order to fulfill my dream of coming to Libya. So we were able to sort everything out in the end, and we soon got on this car, which is massive. This is probably the biggest and largest car that I've ever traveled on.
Ever since my very first minutes in the country, the feeling was definitely weird, as if something was off, being in a country that had been closed for tourism for so long.
In Rome, that was the first time that they saw the electronic visa.
You are the one from the first group which visit Libya and Syria. You are not the first now, but one from the first.
I also soon realized that it wasn't going to be easy at all trying to create the vlog that I wanted to make, considering the police presence in town and the frequency of checkpoints along the streets of Tripoli.
Do I have to be careful when filming stuff like this?
Not like this, but in the checkpoint.
We're now driving towards the direction of the hotel. Now, one thing that I didn't tell you is that obviously you can't come to Libya as an independent traveler, but you can only come on a group tour, which is exactly what I did. So I do have a few friends at the hotel where we're driving to now who are waiting for me and who will be joining us in the exploration of Libya today and in the next few days as well.
The main goal for the first day of our exploration in Libya was very simple, just trying to make it until nightfall while trying to get as big of an insight inside Libyan society as possible. But first, we had to check into our hotel, which we entered after a quick security scan.
Well, this looks nothing like most of the decrepit Russian hotels that we're used to staying at in the middle of Siberia, right? This is beautiful. They took us to the best hotel in town. That's why we've paid so much.
Obviously, vacationing in Libya is not as easy as going on holiday in Crosby near Liverpool, so it was obvious that we would only have professional travelers join our mission, with each bringing something special to the mix.
Right, there they are. Oh, yeah. I knew I was going to find you guys here. You guys look like you're having a feast. Allora, I think I've met just you out of the whole group. And yeah, hi Victoria.
Hey.
Is everything good?
We had, for example, Victoria, who was the only person that I knew before the trip, and what was curious about her is that she was a Brit that had decided to move to Beirut, the capital of the Mystic Republic of Lebanon, which was where she was based.
I love your tattoos, by the way. Did you get a new one? Davide, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm Russian.
Then we had Alex, a Russian kid hailing from the medieval lands of Nizhny Novgorod, and what was special about him is that he was the youngest person ever to visit all federal subjects of Russia.
Oh, здравствуйте, очень приятно.
Yes.
Then we had Michele, and what was special about him is that he was on a quest to visit all 193 UN-recognized countries in the world, and he only had two left, Russia and North Korea.
Nice to meet you, Tom.
And then we had Tom, another Brit who was special because he had visited many times the dangerous Afghan lands.
Tom, where are you from?
From the UK also.
Where exactly?
Brighton.
Davide, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, David. Dylan.
Dylan.
From Melbourne, Australia.
And finally, we had Dylan, who was special because allegedly he was Australian. I had never met an Australian before, and up until that moment, I always thought that their existence was just a myth. After meeting the crew, we got the official brief on the security situation in the country from our guide, Hisham.
So, what's the situation now? This is the map of Libya. We're in the very north there. So, Tripoli is safe?
Yes.
right?
All safe now. We can move everywhere in Libya.
Right.
But when we have permission, that's good for us to moving without a problem in the checkpoint. For European, also for Libyan people, I need the permission.
To go where, for example? To the desert?
Atakos, Gadames, Sabrata,
I see.
Sireni.
Which is near
Yeah.
Benghazi, right?
Yes,
so are like the
yeah.
governments are different between Tripoli and Benghazi, or is
You
it the
know
same?
now the situation in Libya. We have government in western Libya and other in eastern Libya.
Oh,
you
I
know.
see.
We
So
have
that's
two
why.
government now.
Okay.
It's not one government. you
Okay,
know.
I see. That's
Yes.
why.
In the future, now we speak about one only government.
So the situation becomes
Yes,
even more
yes,
stable.
will
Okay.
become stable.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's better than what it was. Like there was a ceasefire, right? There was war. Now there's no war.
No war.
Okay.
now. Yes.
So it's
From-
better, but
yes.
there's still
The
instability.
war was 2019, 2020 finished.
Hmm.
Now from 2020 to today, it's good. It's stable,
Nice.
you know.
So while the war was on, there was no tourism.
No tourism from 2011. You are one from the first group which visit Libya after 2011.
Wow. So we've just made it to the very center of the town, and we can see some of the remnants already of the fact that we Italians were here before. But this doesn't necessarily date back to 80 years ago under Mussolini, but this dates back to a long time before then. This was definitely built by the Romans, right? Look at it. This Arch of Triumph. But we can definitely tell that we're in Northern Africa because we've also got the call to prayer. It's almost 5 o'clock. So you've got the Romans and Islam right behind it. I've got such a weird feeling being here, I have to tell you. One thing that I've always been curious of as an Italian was if in Libya, after some 80 years after the end of Italian occupation, some people still speak Italian. So, with permission of the guide, I went and asked around for a bit, mainly representatives of the older generations for obvious reasons, and to my surprise, my curiosity was satisfied quite early into our exploratory social-linguistic research. Salam alaikum. Parla un poco italiano? Oh. Oh! Venezia, posso? Ah. Quindi lei parla italiano? Come mai parla italiano? Perché? Ha studiato? Quando qui c'erano gli italiani? A scuola?
Anch'io sono andato in Italia.
Ah sì? Per studiare?
No.
Per lavorare?
Generico.
Turismo?
Sono andato a Siracusa.
Siracusa in Sicilia?
In Sicilia.
Ah, non lontano, dall'altra parte del Mediterraneo, vero?
Sì, Villa San Giovanni.
Villa San Giovanni, sì.
Sanremo.
Sanremo? Oh, dove c'è il festival? Festival di Sanremo, conosce?
Sanremo c'è Napoli.
Napoli?
Napoli.
Oh, io non sono mai stato a Napoli. Quanti anni hai?
95.
95? Wow, congratulazioni, complimenti. Come si chiama? Mohammed. Io mi chiamo Davide. Molto piacere. Molto piacere. This is so interesting. Like we've just spoken to I was going to say 59, but no, it's the other way around. He was a 95-year-old guy from Libya speaking good Italian. Well, it wasn't perfect Italian, but it was well. Assalamu alaikum. Well, it was so good that we were able to have a conversation, and it's crazy because there are so many things at the end of the day that reminds us of Italy. Like, for example, well, maybe not this street so much, even though it is reminiscent to some extent of the calles that you have in Venice, for example. And even this one, you see the name, you've got Casa Morischi. You run the place? Hotel? Restaurant? Restaurant. Oh, Casa Italian restaurant maybe? Oh, wow. There are so many elements of Italian culture. There's so many things that reminds us of Italy. There's like people speaking Italian. There's like Italian hotels and restaurants, and there's Italian people even, like me. And we've made it to what is the main square of Tripoli, and by extension, the main square of the country. Welcome to Martyrs Square. And for all my vexillology fans, look at that! We've got the largest flags that you can have and that you can find in the country's capital, waving and flying high in the sky. And you can see a lot of people here, and you see these buildings that definitely look, I don't know, this is definitely reminiscent of an Italian square, of a medium-sized town somewhere in Tuscany maybe, or somewhere by the sea. And the other cool thing about this square is that it used to be called the Green Square for a reason that you might guess. Because back in the day, these flags that are now flying up in the sky, they used to be all green, because that's the flag that we all grew up to learn Libya about. And they were green, and they were massive, and the square was renamed, and they were green, and they were massive, and the square was known as the Green Square. So the Italians built this?
Yes, this is Banca di Roma, second Banca di Roma.
Banca di Roma?
Sì.
Right.
All this bâtiment is Italian.
It does look like an Italian square, that's true.
So weird. At times, it felt like we were having one of those free city walking tours that you usually get in any European city, but then in other times, the situation felt a lot more tense, especially when we had random Libyans approach us just because we were foreigners, of which they don't see many nowadays.
I have a story with this place. I can show you some place.
Okay.
I spent about 26 years in jail because of it.
26 years in jail, wow.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be dangerous for me to walk around with you?
No, you see, from that window, we tried to shoot Gaddafi here.
Holy cow!
But what I was realizing as the day progressed was the noble spirit of the Libyan people, which was still being manifested in spite of the incredibly harsh times that the country had to endure for the past 15 years.
Not with money, not with anything, you know? With constitution. That was something we miss, because some people have ego, personal motivation, so they keep this crisis goes and no.
So you don't think it's safe now? That's what you mean?
No, it is safe with this man. Don't go away from him.
So I've got to be careful here, as I was told that this is a sensitive place, being the main square of the town and all. And it's interesting to see the ethnic composition here. It's not so much Libyans that are hanging around on this square, but it's mostly people coming from sub-Saharan Africa. And basically they're here because they're waiting. So they take the journey from Mali, from Chad, from Nigeria, from Senegal, and they come here, they cross the border into Libya from the desert, I guess, through the desert, and then they reach this place and then they're stuck. And some of them eventually will make enough money to pay a fixer that can take us across the pond, across the Mediterranean. And it's a trip that is risky and is expensive as well. It can cost north of 4,000 or 5,000 euros. But more importantly, it's a trip that most times can cost something that doesn't really have a price, because it comes with their life.
Migration crises have been a huge, massive topic for discussion in Europe for the past 15 years, and it was crazy to just be standing there at the starting point of one of the most common and deadliest routes to enter Europe for people who don't have the legal means to do so.
So all these people are here because they come to Libya,
Work here and try to go to Europe.
and they need money for that, right? Because the trip costs a lot.
Because most of them stay here because there's work here. A lot of Africa, you know. We have the border with Niger, Sudan, and Chad. You know, South Libya.
So they all come through here.
Yes.
But after that, we also had the chance to experience the more fun part of Libya, as right around sunset we stumbled into an illegal display of stunt motorcycle riding.
I don't know how and why and when and where, but we ended up here. This is like the National Libyan Festival of Motorcycling. And this is random as hell. Assalamu alaikum. This is so random. There's people doing burnouts and there's people doing wheelies, even on the front wheel like this. Oh my god, what is going on? Look at them. Italy. But I guess Libya is not the lawless land that you think it is, or as much as you think it is, because at some point the police did arrive. And now the police has arrived. I also got worried for half a second, because surely I didn't want the police to think that I was part of the motorcycling crew, so I got the hell out. I surely didn't want to get in trouble in Libya on my very first day. And now they're blocking the road.
Yes, it's like a mafia. They can't make something, the police.
Oh! And at this point, our guide thought that this was enough adventures for the first day in Libya, so he advised us to get back into the hotel, and so we did. We were going to dig a lot deeper into Libya and Libyan society, but I will show you all of that in the next videos. So cheers, thank you, bye!